Hi, everybody, and welcome again to another WinPeers weekly webinar. Hope everybody's having a great week. My name is Ben Cutler. I'm one of our solution specialists here with WinPeer. I'll be your host today. Of course, those who registered for the webinar today, you will receive an email with links to my online calendar and a link to this recording once we finish up today. Just wading into this here. Keep in mind, this is an informal webinar. We'll try to leave a few minutes at the end here for Q&A before we wrap up. And please visit us at winpeer.com for more information, or feel free to email sales@winpeer.com. See a few people still joining here. So really appreciate everyone joining today, your interest, your consideration. I hope everyone is doing well, hopefully in the comfort of your own home, maybe a few back in the office today. I'm personally really excited about this webinar today. I think this is going to be fun. I have, you might say I have a bit of a passion for data matching. And today we're going to hopefully help everyone become a bit more of an expert in this, and to be able to look well beyond the more obvious lower value opportunities, like some of your more general data cleansing, deduplication, and to really start thinking about the really big higher value data matching opportunities that exist. By the way, please do me a big favor and subscribe to us on YouTube. We'd really appreciate your support there. A bit of housekeeping before we move into today's topic. Just starting with a quick reminder that everyone is on mute, but you can ask questions using the question box on the GoToWebinar control panel. Again, I'll try to circle back to those questions before we finish. We'll probably run over the 30 minutes today, especially if we do get some questions coming in. A bit of background for those that are new to WinPeer. WinPeer was founded in 2003. We have thousands of clients and partners all over the world. Our software is award-winning worldwide, #1 on G2 Crowd. That's our clean and match software. We have that software available for budgets of just about any size. It's very plug and play, no special skills are needed. We have a free trial available. It takes about 2 minutes to download, 2 minutes to install, and you can request a trial version at winpeer.com. So please check us out there. So moving into the topic today, and putting this all into context, again, we've talked about data matching, deduplication, data cleansing, standardization, address verification, things like that. The WinPeer Clean and Match platform is a data quality platform with a special focus on the data matching component. So we get involved in a variety of different initiatives, and we can help with a variety of potential problems. We hear a variety of different keywords essentially referring to very similar activities. So again, deduplication, data integration, data migration, data quality, master data management, merge purge. Today's topic, record linkage, single customer view, single source of truth. Again, there are quite a few similarities in all of these different data management activities. So the agenda for today looks like this. We're going to start with a warm-up, a few slides, a bit of discussion to put all of this into better context. We're going to look at a few use cases to get you thinking about the many opportunities for record linkage within the organization. We'll see a few other visuals, again, to help put all of this into context. And then we're going to take a look at a brief demonstration of record linkage, and then we'll open it up to questions before we wrap up today. Let me go ahead and change slides here. So the topic today is record linkage. Some of you might recall that we've talked about different data matching use cases week after week, especially a couple of weeks ago on the data matching webinar. If you recall, it's not always deduplication. We talked about data quality initiatives, master data management initiatives, deduplication initiatives, which is more data operations, and also data integration, which is really a higher value activity. Data matching for data integration is often referred to as record linkage, which is what we're looking at today. So what is it, and how is it different? Well, essentially it's matching, linking, joining, and integrating multiple disparate sets of information. Why would we do this? Well, if you look on your screen here, this is a it's a good quote, one that's been circulating quite a bit on social media, especially LinkedIn lately. You can have data without information, but you cannot have information without data. And raw data isn't necessarily very useful. Neither is just a single layer of data. It is what it is. But by massaging this data and by linking multiple disparate sets of information, the information itself becomes significantly more valuable and significantly more useful. So a good example here, if you think about mergers and acquisitions, right? One company merging or acquiring another. These mergers and acquisitions, they aim to derive, hundreds of thousands, millions, I think typically millions at the very least, or billions of dollars of business value. Most of that business value is driven by integrating information to identify and execute on a variety of different business opportunities, right? So this is really interesting stuff. Let's go ahead and change slides here. So what's the goal for today? We're going to start by looking at some of the information surrounding record linkage to hopefully inspire some critical thinking about some of the opportunities that exist within the organization, some of the concepts, the challenges, the techniques, and some of the other considerations that we've discussed during previous webinars. And again, we'll walk through a quick example. The biggest takeaway today, I think here, really surrounds the endless number of business opportunities. Go ahead and switch slides here. In the demonstration today, we're going to match, link, join, and integrate multiple disparate dummy data sources, starting with mock COVID-19 test data, right? So this should be fun. The test result data only tells us so much. The information there is really very limited. So we're going to walk through this demonstration to get you thinking about how in linking multiple disparate sets of information, we can make the information itself much more useful, and how we can start to identify, in this case, higher risk individuals, higher risk households, higher risk neighborhoods, higher risk places of employment, or perhaps even other social groups, schools, grocery stores, etc. Let's go ahead and switch slides here. So this COVID-19 public health example, it's really interesting and of course really relevant. Most people are thinking about that kind of stuff today. So I think it's going to be really useful, but the use cases for record linkage are really limitless. So we've got here just a few of many examples. Education, how policymakers know what is and isn't working. In business, this is a very broad one here, but business leaders are linking information about customer sales and product families to different regions of the world, different channels, to better understand trends, risks, interests, and market opportunities. And we also have government, law enforcement, national defense, hundreds of different government agencies spanning from transportation to law enforcement and defense, all integrating information to identify all different types of patterns and opportunities. So let's look at these examples a bit more in detail. In public health, again, using record linkage, you might find ways to answer questions like which individuals or groups of individuals are at higher risk, which labor groups have higher levels of exposure, On the next one here, looking at education, leaders and policymakers in education need to answer questions like, how do we know which programs are working? How do we improve? Which programs should we continue to invest in? How do we develop educational programs that support local business opportunities? Again, the broad one here in business, leaders here want to better understand relationships, opportunities, trends, risks, looking at vendor data, product data, purchasing and customer data. To better understand all of this, across different channels, different brands, different regions of the world. And again, circling back to government, there are hundreds of different branches of government all over the world using record linkage to identify trends, gaps, and opportunities surrounding suspected criminal activities, hotspots, terrorist activities, tax collection, population statistics, social programs, and really a lot more. So again, there are tons of opportunities out there for data integration and record linkage to help you achieve better data integration. So again, to be able to do this well, you've got to better understand also some of the challenges, some of the problems in doing this, especially with some of your more common office tools like Excel, SQL, Python. If you think back to the data matching webinar a couple of weeks ago, we talked about general data quality issues, descriptions, just descriptions being always inherently different from one data set to another. We talked about having disparate systems, disparate sets of information, different ways of structuring the information, different formatting issues and things like that, general fragmentation, ambiguity, all of these issues. It's important to take these issues into consideration, especially if you're looking at how to approach integrating information. And all of those issues we've touched on in previous webinars, and we've tried to keep it very simple: data matching, deduplication, things like that, using very simple, small examples with small sets of data, typically just two sources. But again, when we're talking about record linkage, we're talking about integrating multiple disparate data sets. And this is going to make something like this even more complex, right? Each set of data may have, different issues, right? And so if we're talking about linking, 3, 4, 5, or dozens of different data sets here, you've got to put a decent amount of thought into the approach, into the process. A visual approach is also very important. So again, tools like Excel, SQL, Python, they're just not going to work for you. They're not going to work very well for things like this. Also, to keep in mind that when linking multiple disparate sets of data, each set of data may have different keys available to link them. So you'll see in the example, in the demonstration that's going to follow here, the first two sets of data have an ID number for matching and linking and kind of joining those data sets, but the other data sets don't. So we switched from linking or matching on ID numbers to names, and then later to addresses, right? So don't try this in Excel. Don't try to do this with SQL or Python, right? There are best-in-class tools for this. WinPeer's Clean and Match software makes this very simple. Go ahead and change slides here. So this is just a quick visual of essentially what we're going to do during this demonstration, linking data sets. So if you look here left to right, we're going to start by linking the COVID-19 dummy test results with the dummy data on medical history to have better data to work with, to have a more complete set of data, and to essentially identify higher risk individuals, right? This is a layered approach. Each each set of data or each set of information that we link into the original gives us new information to work with and helps us to better understand different dimensions of these questions that essentially we're looking to answer. We're going to take that, we're going to link it to residential data, right? Again, just dummy data, residential data. The idea here is that this is some location data and people that live at those locations. And again, we're going to do that to enrich the original data set, giving us more to work with, providing us some new match keys, right? New information to use for matching with other data sets. And ultimately, again, this linkage layer, so to speak, will help us to identify higher risk neighborhoods, right? So moving from higher risk individuals by linking test results and medical history to now being able to identify higher risk neighborhoods. Then we'll link that information to a couple of other data sets to further enrich the data, to make the information more useful and allowing us to answer other questions. So we're almost ready for the demonstration here. This is just a quick breakdown looking at this layer by layer. Also wanted to mention these slides are actually attached to the GoToWebinar control panel as a handout. So feel free to take this information with you today. Let me take a quick look here. It looks like we may have a question coming in. I do see a question. I'll try to come back to that at the end here. So again, this is just a visual to help you break this down so you can better understand layer by layer what we're doing. A single data set is only going to tell us so much. Linking that to another data set will give us more information to work with. Layer by layer, the information will become more useful. So we're going to start essentially with test results, which are pretty obvious risks. We're gonna go ahead and link that then to medical history with some information on underlying conditions and things like that to better understand higher individual risks. We're going to link that then to this residential or neighborhood data to better understand higher risk neighborhoods of sorts, right? Level by level there. So again, all of this information is attached. Feel free to take that with you. And then lastly here is just a visual to help you better understand how the data itself will actually grow as we link it to other data sets. Essentially starting with a small amount of information, and the more we link that to other sets of information, the more useful the information will become. So let's go ahead and transition here, switch gears. We're going to jump into a pretty simple and a brief demonstration of what this will look like layer by layer. Just give me a second to switch the screen share here. Great. And again, I'll try to come back to that question and any other questions before we wrap up the webinar today. So let's go ahead and work through the demonstration here, layer by layer. Again, these are small sets of data. It helps you to better understand exactly what's happening as we're manipulating the data, so to speak. But let's go ahead and just start by importing data here. I'm going to do that from Excel. And I've already queued up this data. So I'm going to bring in first the testing and the medical history data. Right, that's what we talked about. So if you take a look at this data set here, again, that testing data, right, this only really gives us so much information. In this example, we just have an ID number, a test result, and something just kind of for laughs here, imminent quarantine order, right? Which may be realistic, may not be. We're going to link that to data on medical history, right? And doing that, again, we're going to have more information. We're going to better understand, in this case, very specifically here, pre-existing conditions, right? So we can better understand higher risk individuals, right? So in this case, we're just going to link by an ID number here, right? So that's going to be our key for doing the linkage. In this first set of data here, we don't have much information. We don't have a name or an address or anything along those lines. So again, by linking, we're going to have more information, right? So very simple example here, right? One record from each side. There aren't any, duplicates. There aren't, it's just really kind of information relating to a single individual, right? So it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to match on that ID number. And we're going to look at how essentially we're going to join these two records to create a single record, single source of truth, you might say, giving us all of that information, right? So you can see here highlighted, we matched on the ID number, and we've got unique information on each side, right? So this is group one, we've got information from both sides, and you can see kind of the different information from each side of the equation here. So to do this, we're just going to start by selecting a master record. We're going to use the testing set as the master, and then we're going to add information to it. We're just going to append this other information here. So whereas we only had previously 3 fields of data, now we're going to have something like 9 fields of data. So all of this data is going to be combined into a single record, right? And then we're going to use that to link to other sets of information. So very quickly and easily here, I'm just going to go ahead and merge. And then what we're left with, and we're going to get rid of these system fields, what we're left with is just a single line of data. It's a person, right, me in this case, with information on the test results and pre-existing conditions and insurance number and emergency contact, right? So this information just became much more useful and much richer information to work with. We're going to go ahead and move this to data, which just moves whatever data we have on the screen here back to this data step. I'm going to move to data. We're going to come back to the data step. Now, again, just a quick reminder, this first layer of information, right? This test result data, we only have very limited information to work with. And, between these two views, it's not exactly an expedient way of trying to answer questions, right? To better understand your business or the risks involved, things like that. So what we're doing here is we're linking these two sets of data to give us a single set of data. We're going to then take this and we're going to link it to other sets of data. So we started with essentially 2 records in, right? Take a look here, one here, one here. 2 records in, we have 1 record out. We had a total of 9 data points in, and we have a total of 9 data points out. And now we can see that test result data and the medical history data in a single view. Now, if we stopped here, we wouldn't have an address, we wouldn't know anything about family, we wouldn't know anything about employment information. So there's so many questions we wouldn't be able to answer at this point. But again, we're not going to stop here. We're going to go ahead and take that and we're going to rename it just so we know what we're dealing with here. And we're going to link that to another set of data, right? So we're going to bring this in and we're going to link that to residential. You can see here on the screen, I have a couple of different records on the residential table. So we have that 1 record from Linkage and we have 2 more from residential. Now, these are 2 different people. They happen to live at about the same address there, same city, zip code, same neighborhood, really the same geo coordinates. So everything looks kind of the same, but again, 2 different people here. We're going to link the information here that again combines the test results along with the medical history to this information on residential details, which again just helps us essentially append address information to the information that we already have, right? Let's go ahead and move to the match. And so again, in this case, we're not going to use the ID number. We use the ID number for the first pass. We're going to come back here and now work with names, right? That second or that third set of data, residential data, didn't include ID numbers, right? And this is the reality of dealing with data, right? You're going to have different issues with each set of data. Each set of data is going to contain different keys, you might say, for matching, right, or linking the information. And in this case, in order to link this first set, which is that linkage 1, to the second set, which is residential details, we're going to now use the full name. We're going to do that quick and easy. Go ahead and match the data. Come back here. We're going to show our system fields. And now you can see that I have a single group with a single match. Again, just matching my name, right? If we look at that in detail, again, we had 2 from that residential details, one of which was Bethany. We're matching on name here, so we can keep this kind of at the people level, right? So in terms of working with objects, we're essentially linking people at this point. Come back to groups here. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to combine this information. So we're not working with kind of 2 records and 2 different views of the information. We're going to combine this information so we've got it all in a single line of data. And again, when Pierce Clean and Match software here makes that very simple. I'm going to go ahead and start by selecting a master record. We're going to use linkage 1. That is very simple. We're going to merge. And that gives us that single line of data. Now you can see we've moved over to the all data view here. And let's get rid of those system fields for a minute. And what you're going to see here is, again, instead of the the 9 data points that we had previously, now we have another 4 or 5 data points on this single record. So now we know that Benjamin Lee Cutler did test positive, does have an imminent quarantine order. We know that he does have a pre-existing condition, which is asthma. We also know his insurance number, emergency contact information, address information there, neighborhood, lat and long, right? So this information just became a lot more useful. And again, we're not going to stop there. And it's not just Benjamin Lee Cutler, right? We started with that testing data. Benjamin Lee Cutler was the only one that tested positive, but along the way we picked up some other information there, right? Just making the information more useful. At this point, all we know about Bethany is that she wasn't on the list of people who tested positive, right? And we know kind of where she lives. So that's great. We're going to go ahead and again hide system fields. We're going to move this to data, right? Working through this very, very quickly. And again, if we started here with 3 records between the 2 sources, right? Let's take a look. We had 1 here and 1 here. Now we have 2, right? Again, we're matching on objects. The objects in this case are people. So we had 3, now we have 2. And at this point, again, we have 1 person who tested positive for COVID-19 and 1 who was not on that list, essentially. We have addresses for both of these individuals, but the ID number, the test results, the pre-existing conditions, and the other information on only 1 of the 2 individuals. We started with kind of that those 2 individuals and essentially 9 data points. Now we have something around 15, 16 data points here. We're going to get rid of what we use there. We've got new information to work with. We're going to rename that. I think we're linkage 3 at this point. And we're going to import the employment data. Right? We're going to now link this to employment. Right? If you take a look at the employment data, what do we have here? We just have names, company, locations, number of employees, some information about whether or not they implemented safer at home types of policies, right? So more information to work with to help us answer additional questions, to better understand the risks involved here. And in this case, again, looking at the 2 data sets here, we can probably assume that we're going to have to do the linkage on names. And this is very simple. We have 2 on this side, 2 on this side. The 2 here should link directly to the 2 here, and we're just going to enrich the information, further enrich what we already have. So again, very, very simple. We're going to link to the name here from table to table. Again, very, very simple stuff. Only groups. Let's show our system fields just for a minute here. We've got Bethany linking to Bethany, Ben matching to Ben here. And again, 1 record from each source. And again, you've got information on each side of the match, right? And so what we're going to do here is, again, we're just going to start by selecting a master record, 1 that we're going to keep. We're going to merge the information, and then we're essentially going to preserve all of these unique data points, right? So very, very simple stuff here, but very, very powerful. Let's go ahead and keep the 1 from linkage. So we're going to keep this 1 and this 1, right? Linkage, linkage. And then again, we're going to merge. And that moves us to all data. And again, let's get rid of those system fields at this point. You can see we still have, in terms of objects, we're still kind of matching at that person information. We've got two different people here again, and we just continue to enrich the information. Now we've got information on places of employment, so we can better understand how large those organizations are, how many different locations there are, whether or not they've implemented safer at home policies and things like that, right? And then again, we're going to move back to data, and we're going to link this to the final set of data here. Again, we're going to get rid of the two that we had. We're going to rename, I think we're on linkage 4, linkage 3. Let's go ahead and click OK there. Let's import that last set of data. And I see we're at that half-an-hour mark, so it's good timing. Following this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. So I'm going to bring in that family data. Again, we talked about linking test results or having test result information to better understand, who's at risk, right? Linking that to medical history information to better understand or to identify individuals of higher risk. Then linking that information to residential data to, essentially append some information with addresses and neighborhoods. Linking that then to employment information to better understand, let's just say labor groups that might be at higher risk, company, better understand company policies and things like that to give us more information to work with. Finally, here we're going to link what we have to this family data, right? And so again, if we take a look at what we have these two individuals, and for Benjamin Lee Cutler, we have more information. As we've talked about, pre-existing conditions, insurance number, emergency contact. We know that Ben tested positive, Bethany wasn't on that list, and we're going to link this over to the family data. Now on the family side, what we have here is essentially individuals or households and those addresses, right? This might be like, let's just say data from the government and, let's say, social programs and things like that. So it's a head of household, an address, a spouse, children, other family that maybe live with or near the individual. And essentially we're going to link this to this, and we're going to link on address. And what we're going to see here, to give you a bit of a teaser, what we're going to see here is that these individuals essentially link to the same address. They're part of the same household. So again, to help us to better understand those risks, right? We can then take that information, link it to other information to better understand, nearby grocery stores and things like that, different hotspots within the region that we may need to be concerned about. So again, very quickly and easily here, we're just going to go ahead and match, this time on address. And we're going to have a more complete view of this information, right? We're going to have a lot more data to work with. Our understanding of this information is much more complete than it was when we started, right? And we can go through and we can, set master records, do some merging. We can append this information if we want to, but this is really where the demonstration stops today, right? So again, record linkage, being able to integrate multiple different or disparate sets of information to better understand risk, trends, patterns, behaviors, opportunities, right? And all of this has so many different applications. Again, education and government and business in general. So what we started this exercise with some information on test results and medical history. By linking and aggregating this data, we achieved essentially a single view. One person whose test results were positive, another person who wasn't listed in those test results, maybe didn't get tested or something along those lines. We linked the test result data to the medical history to better understand individual risk factors. We linked that data to other data sets, giving us information on home address, which helps us to better understand higher risk neighborhoods, etc. We link that to another set of information, giving us information on places of employment, potential employment hotspots, and then we linked all of that back to the household level, and we were able to see that these two individuals essentially both belong to the same or a similar household, and one of which tested positive for COVID-19, has at least one pre-existing condition, which then poses a greater level of threat or risk to the household, to the surrounding neighborhood, nearby grocery stores, maybe kids' schools, and both of these individuals work in very large companies, potentially exposing thousands of others to the disease. So that is the demonstration today. A lot of information there very, very quickly, but hopefully we're able to connect the dots and make all of this easy to understand, useful for everyone on the webinar today. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions before we wrap up here. I do have a few things to say before we wrap up as well, but I'm going to try to take any questions coming in before we do that. So, let me expand my view here. Give me just a second. I'm not seeing this the right way. Here we go. Is it correlated or bi-directional matching or data mining to one-way matching? Thank you. Robert, you're using terms that I'm honestly not very familiar with. There's a lot of different applications for this, so happy to have a conversation if you'd like to. I'd love to be able to answer that question with more information, but you're using terms that I'm just not familiar with. I'm sorry. Next question there. Do you know where someone would find test data similar to this to work with? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's tons of public information available. So I do personally know of several different sources. I'd have to go and kind of check my bookmarks. It's not something I can kind of rattle off at the top of my head here, but I've personally been looking at some of these different COVID related data sets myself. So Michael, thank you for the question. You'll get an email after this webinar. Feel free to reach out to me and I can share maybe a few helpful sources with you. So a couple other questions here. How can we be sure that you're linking data correctly when you are limited to just a name? Barbara, great question. I'd encourage you to go back to that data matching webinar that we did a couple of weeks ago, because your process is going to be different in almost every scenario. There's no single bulletproof way of doing this kind of work, and Barbara, you and I have spoken on many occasions, so I know that you personally are very familiar with this type of work, and you know how complex it can be, so your definitions and your classifications and your objectives, and things like that, all are going to have a serious impact on the way that you do this, right? On the way that you do data matching and data linkage, record linkage. So great question, Barbara. Really appreciate it. I see you've got another one that follows, but we can discuss that in more detail. I'll come to that second question in a minute. Robert, we can talk later. Yeah, please do send me your number. Happy to have that conversation. So Barbara, yeah, just looking there and just kind of a follow up to that first question. Let's discuss if you'd like to. Looks like the last question here, what's the case for fuzzy matching? Larry, great question. I mean, if we went back and looked at all of this data, each set of data in detail, and again, just thinking about, linking multiple disparate sets of information, we started off linking on an ID number, and those keys that we use to do the linkage are going to change from set of information to set of information. And all of those data quality issues are going to exist within each set of information, formatting, the different let's just say fields or columns that you have available, how much information is available, does a name field really contain a name, or does it contain a phone number, things like that. So of course, all of the same tools that you might use for deduplication or data matching, be it a single set of data, or just a couple of sets of data, or multiple sets of data, all of those are going to be important. That fuzzy matching is really going to be your most powerful tool in your toolkit. It's not necessarily always going to be the right tool, and not necessarily always going to be the right tool for every column. You might have to use exact matching to do some blocking. You might use numeric matching and things like that. But that is a big question. But again, fuzzy matching is pretty much always needed. Those names, you're going to see, aliases. You're going to see different formats where, in some cases it's Mr. Ben Cutler, and in another case it's, it's just Benjamin Cutler, and things like that. And the addresses, again, we talked about this on previous webinars. Descriptions being inherently different, in every instance. So fuzzy matching is pretty much always needed. Great questions. I don't see any other questions, so I just want to finish up here. We're actually going to take a break for the next few weeks here. We're going to come back with a really, really powerful webinar on RPA and data quality, data cleansing, data matching for data migrations. So that's robotic process automation. So in a few weeks, we'll be back with another webinar. We're going to take a few off, but before we wrap up today, I do have a few things that I want to say here. WinPeer has spent almost 20 years developing, this top-rated, best-in-class data quality, data cleansing, and data matching software built for the business user to empower people like me to clean and match larger sets of data faster and much more accurately than we've ever been able to do in the past. As an organization, we've helped thousands of partners and clients around the world to accelerate their timelines, to expand upon the value of their own services or solutions, to increase productivity, overall ROI, and to guarantee better business outcomes, better quality business outcomes. As an organization, over the last several months, we've been developing a series of live webinars to help you to better understand the functionality of the software, to better understand a variety of data quality related topics, to better understand organizational opportunities, and to better understand your business or your client's business. So please take a few minutes today, do us a favor, follow us on LinkedIn, help us out with some feedback on G2 Crowd, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and use this information that we've been delivering, week after week, month after month, to expand upon your current use of the software. Go back to work and talk with your leadership team, if you have one, about how WinPeer's Clean and Match software can help you to improve upon your company-wide data management strategy. We really appreciate your time and your interest in these webinars, really appreciate all of your feedback and support, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thanks again.